What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to your 5-minute focus. I've been getting a lot of requests from people to talk about different things. Like I got some people wanting me to talk about some more sports. I got some people who want me to talk about video games, and I have opinions on all of this. Now, the thing is, I don't want to do 50 different shows because that's ridiculous. So what I plan on doing, what I want to do is I'm going to start today, is every Wednesday, at least one day out of the week, I'm just going to pile up everything that's running through this insanity that is my brain, and I'm just going to kind of throw it out there, and we're going to see how it goes. For those of you who are just here for wrestling, who love just the wrestling talks, there is plenty of wrestling on this episode, and it will be at the end. I promise you, stick with it. You will get your wrestling, and there's some good stuff that I've thrown in there just for wrestling that you're going to want to stick around to the end to see. So make sure you definitely do that. Let's go ahead and let's start in the world of real-world situations. I got a couple things I want to talk about. First, police officers in St. Louis are profoundly disappointed with the St. Louis Rams players because of the hands-up display they did before the game on Sunday. And I'm going to take it a step farther. Not only do I agree with the police here in this situation, I am disgusted with what the Rams did, because it's not only stupid from an organizational standpoint, it's fundamentally wrong. You cannot ignore facts and just make up your own fucking reality. You can't do it. And that's what they did with the hands up tribute. Because guess what? That version of the story didn't fucking happen. So you're making up your own fucking reality to further an agenda. Shame on you, St. Louis Rams. Shame on you for anyone in the organization who knew it was going to happen. Shame on you for the head coaching staff. And Jeff Fisher, a hell of a fucking head coach. If he did know something about this, I would be shocked and surprised, because this is shameful and I have a serious problem with it. Next, and this is just a question. What is going to be the reaction not only in the Republican Party, but in the country to President Obama's latest executive action that's about to take place? And of course, this is immigration. Is there going to be a response in Congress, in the House? Are civilians going to protest on this? I mean, hell, everybody wants to fucking protest everything else. Where's the outrage to something when our president is basically wiping his ass with the Constitution? I don't know. Anyway, let's get into some sports, because politics are just bleh. UFC has a new fighter uniform deal that they have signed with Reebok. And this is just going to be a failure for everybody. The closest thing in sports you can attribute MMA to is, and you would think boxing, but it's actually not. It's more closely, from an entertainment standpoint, closely akin to wrestling. And I guess all three can kind of be put in together. This isn't going to work. You can't you don't pay fighters all the same thing, just like you don't pay wrestlers all the same thing. So for the UFC fighters, we already know that, the WWE doesn't do promotional stuff, except for Brock Lesnar, who for some reason gets to do his, but others don't. In the UFC, you can. Right now, fighters have their little banners with all of their sponsors on it. They wear their shirts, they drink whatever they drink, they do all of that. This is the beginning of the end to all that by putting uniforms into the mix. And for a lot of fighters, these sponsors are the only thing that gets them through financially, because they don't make a lot of money. Some of them, they get $10,000 an appearance, and you might say, oh, that's a lot of money, until you consider that these guys fight 3 times a year, maybe 3-4 times a year, 5 times tops in the UFC. I'm talking, of course, and even the guys who fight 15, 16 times in lower rankings a year, you think they're making any money? Fuck no. So it just doesn't work. I don't know how it's going to work from a financial standpoint. It's going to be the same thing in wrestling. Top guys are going to be happy. Lower guys are going to continue to bitch and complain. And eventually this is going to end up a bad thing for the UFC. What am I knocking? What am I hitting that is knocking my microphone everywhere? I don't know. So that's my thoughts on the UFC. Ray Rice in the NFL. He is trying to get a second chance. Should he get one? Yes. His wife is giving him a second chance. The law never fucking took action. And he has won his appeal with the NFL. He should get a second chance from a legal standpoint. The problem is, from a player standpoint, does he deserve a second chance? That's debatable. Before all of this shit went down, people tend to ignore the fact that his performance and his production on the field has gone down the last 2 years. He's not the player that he was when Baltimore won it all. Yeah, hell, I mean, that season was great, but he's just not that guy. And it's been going downhill since then. So, will he get another job? He might next year. I don't know if somebody wants to sign him this year. The Cardinals seem to make a lot of sense to me. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see. Just something to keep an eye on. Brock Lesnar. Now, you would think this is a wrestling story. However, it is not. It is still in other sports, because could Brock Lesnar really leave WWE for Bellator? Well, that's the rumor. That's a scuttlebutt going on. In fact, so much so that the people in charge of Bellator are making comments about the type of draw that Brock Lesnar is. Is that even a possibility? Jesus Christ. That's crazy. What a coup for Bellator that would be. Finally, in sports, I want to give my Super Bowl picks for this year, because as of right now, this is how it stands. I got Denver. Yes, Denver, not New England, representing the AFC against, and this kills me to fucking say, I mean, it actually hurts my soul, Green Bay. But that could change. That could change. Green Bay is just playing ridiculous. Aaron Rodgers, I hate him, but Jesus Christ, I don't know what to say about this guy. He's just so good. He's so good. He makes the game, even in an offensive charged world where, it's already easy to score points, because, that's how the NFL has made it. Aaron makes it even look easier. It's crazy. Out of sports and into the television world. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Walking Dead has made me cry. Beth. No. Darth Vader is upset because the last beacon of light and hope is gone from The Walking Dead. And being a beacon of light and hope in The Walking Dead is never a good thing, because you're always gone. But she was probably the last one. Moving on to Sons of Anarchy. Their series finale is coming to an end, and the death toll is rising. Another spoiler, because God, I will always miss you, Leela. Moving on. This is for my gamer folks out there who just need a little bit of gaming love. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to quickly put together a list of my top 5 favorite RPGs, not of all time, because Jesus Christ, who cares about games that were in the 80s, but of the last 5 years, because it's still relevant. And if you haven't played any of these titles, which honestly, based off of the 5 that I picked, probably you all have, but still, my top 5 for the past 5 years in RPGs, since that's my favorite category to play, is, and this is no particular order because I don't want to start fucking hate wars out there, Fallout New Vegas, Diablo 3, Dragon Age 2, Pokemon X and Y, and I say that with fucking pride. Yeah! I gotta catch them all. You want some? Come get some. And of course, and I will put this at the top of the list, I will put it at number 1, Skyrim. Skyrim. And here's the bonus, and a little under-the-radar game. If you haven't played it, make sure you have. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Great fucking game. And if you haven't played it, you need to check it out, because it's a great game. It's kind of under the radar. Here it is, folks. Your wrestling news. I promised it was coming, and here it is. First off, I want to get to Vince McMahon on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast. I want to say it was perfect. It was so well done. Here's my quick notes from it. Vince McMahon gave an apology to CM Punk. The only apology he gave to CM Punk, by the way, and it was for the only thing he really could apologize for. He says that the company there was no other motive to CM Punk getting his severance package the day of his wedding. I believe that. And I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't make any sense for them to... They do not burn bridges like that in this type of situation. They just don't do it. Because not with a star of the caliber of CM Punk. They didn't do it with Austin, and I don't believe they would do it with Punk. For those of you who are like, well, how did that just happen? Well, the motherfucker didn't show up for 6 months to work. So he was never fired. Let's face that. He didn't show up. His contract expired, and they just gave him his severance because the severance package, that I guess it was his buyout clause or whatever it was. That's what happened. Let's not make it more than what it was. Macho Man will be in the Hall of Fame, and soon. What great fucking news. Because of all the big legends, and there are others, of course, but who is more deserving to be in the Hall of Fame than the Macho Man Randy Savage? Oh, yeah, the Macho Man, he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. But everybody keeping the Macho Man down. Yeah, dig it, yeah. Talking about Punk, Vince was saying he wishes, because they were talking about Austin's situation, he wishes so much that there was a JR in this situation, that because JR bridged the gap between WWE and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Vince lamented that he wished there was somebody in the situation that could do the same thing for Punk. I guess he forgot that Punk's wife works for the fucking company. But perhaps it was more telling that he used that phrase because it might show just where AJ stands within the company. And that's kind of telling and possibly very sad. Both Vince and Stone Cold Steve Austin feel the roster needs a step up. I found that an interesting statement. Because it makes you question some things. Are guys not getting pushed because they want to keep pushing the same guys in management? Or how much have these guys really stepped up? I mean, let's ask ourselves that. The guys that have come close and then gone back down, and even Ziggler can be in this conversation in the past, there's been reasons, you can almost put reasoning behind every time that a push has been squashed for Ziggler and others. So maybe it's they have not put themselves out on that limb. But now that the challenge has been set, and Vince has stated this along with Stone Cold Steve Austin, there are no more excuses. So if things don't change now haters, now all you fuckers out there who just want to spew your hatred on everything that is WWE, which I don't blame you for, by the way, in most cases, now you have something to seriously complain about. So we'll see if things change, and I think things can from this interview. Vince hates millennials. God, did you hear the disdain that Vince McMahon used when he said the word millennials? And I don't blame him, because millennials are basically the worst fucking thing in the world. But the entitled millennials, calm down, young people. The entitled fuckheads who think that the world is just going to give, and how things should be is what they're entitled to, and they're deserving of everything in the world. Those are the people that Vince McMahon's talking about, because that's who they do not need in the company. Cesaro, another point that Vince talked about. And this seemed to piss a lot of people off, because he said Cesaro is missing something, because Stone Cold straight out challenged him on the Cesaro topic, because he was confused. Because as with everybody else, he sees the talent that Cesaro has, and Vince made it clear he sees the talent as well. But he made a good point. I don't think that he was put with Heyman because they were like, we need to squash his momentum, the momentum he was gaining going into Mania and then winning the Battle Royal. No, it's ridiculous to think that they put him with Heyman to squash that. They put him with Heyman, and it was a mistake. It didn't work because you flipped him to bad guy. They were hoping to keep him because he was just turning into a face anyway. Let's face it, he was running in the heel role, and then they were hoping to kind of flip it back and make him super heel again with Heyman. It didn't work. People don't want to boo the guy. They just don't under any circumstances. They don't want to boo Cesaro. They want to cheer him. So maybe it's time to, and maybe this falls on Cesaro, to come up with a character that's a face that works, and it's not just this whole multilingual throwback type thing, because you need an angle. You need something that is going to get you over, and maybe that falls on Cesaro to do that at this point. So we'll see if anything changes there, if Cesaro even stays with the company. And finally, Vince says he listens, and he is not out of touch. You know what? I'm inclined to believe him a little bit. Just because he listens to everything that we might say, that doesn't mean that we're right, guys. You know, I know that everybody wants to play Booker and play, you know, like you can run the company better than everybody else. But a lot of the things that people say simply won't work from an economic standpoint or a timing standpoint or multiple other reasonings that we, as, you know, armchair bookers, don't fucking take into consideration. We don't run $1 billion industry. We don't do it. So there are things that they have taken into consideration and do even when they're listening to us. And they have shown enough times in the recent history that they are listening to some things. Guys are it's going to a younger place. Doesn't mean you have to be fucking jaded. And I'm talking to Jesse out there. Jesse J, you jaded motherfucker. And some of you other guys. It doesn't mean that you have to just go, oh, this is window dressing. It's all for shit anyway. They don't want to make a bad product. They don't want to make everybody upset. You know, that's retarded if you think that's what they would, like the WWE just wants to come out and take a big shit all over everything. That's not the case. So let's grow up a little bit with that, okay? Coming out of this interview, I feel it really puts the emphasis on CM Punk a little bit more. And there's not only from the interview, but things that happened after. And I'm going to talk about a few of them. I still think CM Punk looks like a whiner from the interview. And in fact, I think he looks a little bit worse because of it. Because not only did Vince come out and have a fantastic interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and by the way, how much more believable are things that Vince said because it's with somebody like Stone Cold Steve Austin? It goes to my point that if Punk would have done his interview with a guy like Jim Ross, there would have been a lot more credence to what he said. Because a lot of what Vince was stating in this interview, there were a lot of corporate answers. But just because they are corporate answers doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean they're incorrect answers. You know, Jesus, sometimes the corporate way of thinking on things is correct, and it's okay to give him that leeway. But the fact that he said those things and said him with Steve Austin as his interviewer, people were kind of willing to accept it a little bit more. Now, if CM Punk were to give his exact same interview, but gave it to JR, and JR was able to weigh in on those things, and if he agreed with him on certain points, then those points would have held much more merit. Much more merit. Because who the fuck cares what Colt Cabana thinks? It's his best fucking friend. You know? And Colt did a good job interviewing, by the way. It's not like Colt sucked his dick or anything, so I gotta give him credit for that. But he doesn't carry any fucking weight. None. JR would have. Or Stone Cold would have. You know? Let's look at it that way. Also, now there's other aspects of the interview that's being called into question, such as the Y2J situation. During the interview, Punk said that Y2J was reaching out to him, trying to get him on his podcast, and that he was questioning Y2J's motives. Y2J came out with a video vehemently denying that he has ever talked to CM Punk with anything to do about the podcast. Recently, after he left. He did try to get him back in December, but after he left, no, he didn't try to get him on. He sent him texts that were just friendly things. Now, this is relevant only because it makes you question other aspects of Punk's story. if he's getting a few things wrong, how much more is he exaggerating on? How much more is he fudging the facts? And these are legit. This is not me hating on Punk. This is simply using that logic thing that I talk about all the time, that fucking critical thinking skill that I try to preach to you guys. Let's think about it here, you know? And Y2J, by the way, has very, very good credentials in the world as far as, like, nobody calls Y2J a fucking liar. You know, it doesn't seem like Y2J is the type of guy who makes shit up. And the fact that he came out in the type of video that he did, it was very believable, and it makes you wonder, maybe there's a little bit more to this than we know. Maybe Punk is fudging a little bit more facts. One of the biggest things, and it's my last point on this, is Colt Cabana coming out after Mick Foley stated to him, he wrote him a tweet and said, hey, good job on landing the big one, basically. You know, hey, good job on, you know, landing this huge thing for your podcast and basically the biggest interview in the business. And Cabana came back with, it wasn't about landing the big one, Mick. It was about giving my friend a safe place to tell his story. Shut the fuck up with that. I felt that statement was damaging to the entire fucking interview. To the entire interview. Because Punk is no victim. Yes, he called out some things that needs to change in the wrestling industry. Yes, and not just WWE, the wrestling industry. There needs to be a union. There needs to be a players association. Yes, it's not just WWE though, folks. Okay? He called out some very good points that need to be addressed. No question. They've never been addressed before. I don't see they're going to be addressed now because the promoters like their guys to be private contractors. For good or bad, that's just how it is. But for Colt to come out and do this, I felt it just completely undermined and backed up my point, by the way. Undermined CM Punk and backed up my point that Punk was a fucking whiner. Because that was a whiny-ass baby move, and Punk is no victim. He walked out. He took his ball and went home. Yes, there were injuries, but I think there's more to do with the fact that he was not happy with the way that he was booked. And he has stated it plenty of time. And hell, it's what he spent most of his time on during the interview, is the booking angles and stuff like that. So let's come to those fucking terms, people. All right. Final couple of things in the wrestling world, and I'm wrapping this video up because it's going much longer than I thought. Once again, we're not at 5 minutes, and we're not even close. The Ascension is going to be called up soon. It really looks like it. I thought it was going to be Raw during the tag team turmoil. Didn't happen, but the Ascension is ascending soon, and God, the tag team division needs it. So hopefully that will happen. It'll be great. Spoiler alert. I'm ending the show on a bang. Spoiler alert. From SmackDown, they did a stretcher angle with Dean Ambrose. And it may have not been an angle. He may have actually been hurt. I haven't been able to see any reports that it was a total work. I haven't seen any reports that he's been injured. I am speculating off of things that I know because the stretcher angle is usually something reserved for either a legitimate injury or if you're writing somebody out of a storyline and there's no reason to write him out of this angle with Bray Wyatt. So I'm thinking maybe he actually did get hurt because they got no physical altercation during SmackDown. So it's possible he actually got hurt. I'm going to watch SmackDown to determine for myself, but I'm sure between now and then there will be a storyline update. Now, if nothing happens, if in the next 2 days before Friday, before SmackDown airs, if nothing comes out about the health and welfare of Dean Ambrose, I think it's fair to assume that this is a storyline, and we will get a storyline angle update after SmackDown. So keep that in mind and keep a lookout on that. I got a very special Creators Corner coming up, and it probably won't be airing until Friday. Maybe I might be able to squeeze it out tomorrow, but I am having on, and I hope he doesn't burn me so I don't be an idiot here. But I'm having the great Joe Cronin, who did an interview, a very good interview, a very self-reflective interview with a deaf mute by the name of Kevin. And if you haven't watched it, it's on Spectrum Gaming 617. It's an hour long. It's It's very deep. It's a very good interview. It's a very good look into the life of Joe Cronin. I'm going to have him on to talk about a little bit more, not that type of stuff. We're not going to hold hands because I know he calls it Crybaby's Corner, but we're going to talk about his creative process and some other cool shit. And I'm going to have some great highlight package for you on Joe Cronin because, let's face it, he is the guy who has really helped me get this thing off the ground. And I know a lot of you are huge fans of him. So Joe Cronin on Creator's Corner this week. Book it down. Check it out. And if you want to be on Creator's Corner, let me know because I want you on. I want you to display your talentos. Okay, so that's all I got. Thanks for joining me once again. Sub, share, all of that good stuff. Like, comment. I'll try to answer anything that I don't think is fucking retarded. And if it's retarded enough, I'll make fun of you. So, hey, it's all good. Let me know what you guys think. I know I went through a lot of different things on this show, so hopefully check it out and you liked it. If there's things you want me to focus on in the future, give me a shout and I'll try to work it in at some point. But today was just about trying to unjumble all the shit that's going on in my head. And hopefully it has jumbled you up. I'm out of here, people. 15, 16 minutes. Sorry about that. But we'll see you tomorrow for your 5-minute focus. I'm out.